Hey there and welcome back to NBA 2K18's My League Mode. My name is Pete and today we complete the Eastern Conference Finals where the Louisville Legionnaires will face off against the Cleveland Cavaliers. In the previous episode, the Legionnaires absolutely came to play, and thanks to some stellar play inside of the paint, they made quick work of the Charlotte Hornets, who went down 4-0 as the Legionnaires completed the sweep. Now, the upcoming task will be a whole lot tougher. The Cavaliers are arguably the best team in the league right now, and as always, before we jump into the gameplay part, we'll have a quick look at the key matchups. And this is where we'll see quite a few mismatches. At the point guard, Tyler Ulis will match up against Isaiah Thomas, who is still with the Cavs in this playthrough and has also kept his All-Star caliber rating. And despite the fact that Thomas is one of the very few players in the league where Ulis actually has a height advantage, this matchup still definitely goes in Cleveland's favor. Ulis might score the occasional basket against Thomas, who's really not a good defender, but the same thing goes the other way around, and Thomas is a much better offensive player than Ulis. A bit sad to see here, Yogi Ferrell with a season-ending injury, facing off against his former team in the Eastern Conference Finals would have certainly been a nice touch to the series. Moving on to the shooting guard, we now have sophomore prodigy Luka Doncic. He is quickly becoming one of the best guards in the league, and in his second year in the NBA, he's already destined for greatness. His ratings are pretty good on both ends of the court, so our shooting guard Josh Richardson will have his hands full, both on offense and on defense. All in all, this matchup once again goes in Cleveland's favor. At the small forward, then, a guy that I don't really have to say a lot about, LeBron James is still the unquestioned leader of the Cavaliers, and even though he's already 35 years old at this point, he hasn't lost a step yet, and Rodney Hood can only pray to contain him. Even more problematic is then the fact that Jay Crowder is also still on the team, and he still is a very good 3-and-D player who could add some valuable production coming off the bench. So positions 1 to 3 clearly go in Cleveland's favor. Down low, however, the situation is not as clear-cut. Yes, Kevin Love is still an All-Star caliber power forward, and his ability to score both inside and outside makes him very dangerous offensively. However, he's also not the best defender down low, and with scoring power forwards like Skal Labissière and Bryce Johnson, we could very well try to exploit that. So offensively, I would still definitely give the edge to Love here, but on defense he could prove to be an interesting point of attack. His backups, by the way, all stretch fours with similar holes in their defensive game, so very intriguing for Bryce Johnson, who also comes off the bench. Finally then, the man in the middle, Tristan Thompson, and for a change he's a player who does not demand our full attention on defense all the time. We will have to keep him away from the glass and he'll prove his worth on defense, but in a matchup against the 7-foot-tall and very mobile Mohamed Bamba, I could actually see Thompson lose out. So for us, that once again means we'll focus heavily on getting the ball inside. If that doesn't work, however, I see dark times ahead of us, because this Cavaliers team is absolutely stacked from top to bottom. There are a number of players who could explode for 30 points on any given night, so the Legionnaires are definitely the underdogs going into this series. And going into the series, that is also what we'll do next. As the first seed, the Cavaliers have home court advantage for this one, so let's hit the court in Quicken Loans Arena and see how this game plays out. Now, we got off to a very good start in this one, very quickly putting 2 fouls on Tristan Thompson. The first came on this drive from Tyler Ulis, and the second one then on an illegal screen in the very next possession. And that forced the Cavs to sit Thompson down after only 22 seconds of action. And the Legionnaires made the most of Cleveland's early struggles, starting the game off on a big 9-0 run. Richardson had 5 points during that stretch, including the 3-pointer here to put the Legionnaires up 9-0. The Cavaliers though quickly caught themselves. Despite a rather poor shooting percentage, Isaiah Thomas was the best player this quarter, finishing quarter number 1 with 9 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists and 3 steals. Jay Crowder remained perfect from the field and added 6 points as the Cavaliers went on a 9-2 run to finish the quarter, and after the first 12 minutes were all tied up in Cleveland, with 22 points for both sides. In quarter number 2 then, we managed to get the ball a bit more inside and got some good early production from Bryce Johnson. With the Legionnaires scoring a lot of points inside, the Cavaliers then switched to a zone defense, which actually worked pretty well for them. Offensively, they got a few more points out of Isaiah Thomas, but overall their scoring was spread pretty evenly this quarter. For the Legionnaires, however, one man stepped up before the halftime, and I am talking about rookie Andre Flanders. Flanders was absolutely unconscious in this quarter. He scored 15 of the Legionnaires' last 17 points before the halftime break, and he finished the quarter with 18 points, including a few absolutely amazing shots. And for that kind of performance, the Cavaliers didn't really have an answer. And so behind an incredible Andre Flanders, the Legionnaires actually managed to build themselves a lead here, and we head into the halftime break with Louisville up by 10 points. Keeping the Cavaliers to 35% from the field in the first half definitely also played its part, but still this game was far from decided. The second half then started with a bit of back and forth. Both teams only shot 40% from the field this quarter, but the Cavaliers were starting to hit their three-pointers. Long-range shots from Luka Doncic, Kevin Love and LeBron James brought the Cavaliers back into this one, slowly but steadily chipping away at the lead. Luckily, the Legionnaires were still able to force a few turnovers to create easy scoring opportunities, and so, going into the final quarter break, they still had a 6-point lead. In the fourth and final quarter though, it once again rained three-pointers. Luka Doncic and Kevin Love found their touch from outside, both of them made 2 three-pointers this quarter, and the game became closer and closer and the Legionnaires were barely holding on to their lead. And barely holding on, that is how we jump into crunch time. With less than 1.5 minutes left to play, the Legionnaires have a tiny 1-point lead, but the Cavaliers have the ball. The contested jumper from Thomas misses though, and we go back the other way. We are definitely not in a hurry here, and ideally we not only score but also burn a bit of clock on this possession. You can see here the Cavaliers aggressively hedging and also switching on the pick and roll, and with the shot clock slowly winding down, we now need an exit strategy. Against Kevin Love, Labissière then gets a shot off in the post. Unfortunately it misses, but Rodney Hood is there to make a big play and grab the rebound against LeBron James. A few seconds of fumbling follow, but we ultimately get the ball back outside, and with Richardson matched up against the much smaller Isaiah Thomas, we call for the isolation. Off the drive, Richardson then has a good look but misses a shot. Once again though, we grab the offensive rebound and slowly but steadily the clock is ticking down. With a 10-second difference between shot and game clock, we now run a pick and fade with Hood and Labissière, but Hood starts running a bit too early and the Cavaliers recover nicely. Off the roll, Labissière then has a drive to the basket, but LeBron is there to help and instead of 2 points, we only get 2 free throws. Now don't worry about the shot feedback here, I have the free throws set to player percentage, and being a solid free throw shooter, Labissière makes them both. And down by 3 with the shot clock turned off, the Cavaliers now take a timeout. Out of the inbounds play, the ball then finds LeBron James, who is quickly able to beat Rodney Hood, but also gets fouled at the rim and cannot make the basket. This right here, definitely a shot he could have made despite the foul, instead he now has to earn 2 points the hard way. And things go even worse as LeBron misses the first shot, now with a chance to only come within 2, as we quickly switch Hood and Richardson here in anticipation of the Cavaliers fouling. James then makes the second free throw and as planned Hood stays back. We manage to get him the ball and the Cavaliers are actually a bit slow to foul here. Eventually though they send the Legionnaires' best free throw shooter to the line. And Hood makes the first one, and he also makes the second one, and down by 4 with 18 seconds left the Cavs burn their final timeout. The inbounds play then finds Luka Doncic open in the corner. Hood is a step too late and Doncic drills the 3. Apart from a 4-point play, probably the absolute worst thing that could have happened in this situation, and so the Legionnaires now take a timeout to talk things over. Out of the timeout, Hood then gets the ball and I was actually afraid of stepping into the backcourt here, and we got very lucky here that it didn't get intercepted. Instead, Josh Richardson now makes his way to the line, and just like Hood before him, he hits the first and also the second one. The Cavaliers now out of timeouts and apparently looking for the 3-pointer, but no one's really open or willing to take a shot. Eventually then Thomas fires a fadeaway from the corner. That misses though, Labissière grabs the rebound and before the Cavs can foul, we call the final timeout. And with 0.9 seconds left on the clock, we inbound the ball to Tyler Ulis. The Cavaliers are not quick enough to stop the clock again, and with that the upset is complete. The Louisville Legionnaires take Game 1 in Cleveland. A fantastic back and forth here from start to finish, a very fun game to play. In the end, the Legionnaires probably got a bit lucky that none of the Cavaliers stars got hot tonight. Their shooting percentage for the game only 39%, although Louisville not much better with 41%. In the end though, the Legionnaires come out on top, 95-92 the final score, and that concludes Game 1 in Cleveland. To send us off, a quick look at the stats, and Andre Flanders was arguably the man of the match tonight for the Legionnaires. His second quarter heroics were a big reason Louisville was able to build a lead in the first half, a lead that they barely managed to hold on to until the final buzzer. Josh Richardson on the other hand did score a good amount of points as well, however he shot only 6 of 15 from the field and only 1 of 7 from deep, and he also finished the game with 3 turnovers and 4 personal fouls. Tyler Ulis then did a respectable job against Isaiah Thomas. Yes, Thomas was able to score 21 points tonight, but Ulis held his own on defense for the most part, and was also still able to do a good job on offense. Scalabrine then another player with a pretty bad shooting percentage, only 5 of 16 from the field, but in the end he still got himself the double-double, and he also racked up 4 very important steals. Bryce Johnson then barely missed the double-double in 20 minutes of action, but he had some good moments in the post and once again provided some valuable production off the bench. Rodney Hood then did most of his work from the free throw line tonight, and just like in the Hornets series, he also once again acted as a playmaker for the Legionnaires. His final stat line therefore one that shows versatility, with 8 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals and a block. Mo Bamba then couldn't really get his shot to fall tonight. The rest of his game though didn't suffer all that much. Apart from the bad shooting, he was still able to put up his usual numbers, finishing the game with 6 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals and 2 blocks. For the Cavs, Luka Doncic put up a rather quiet 22, I have to say. He hit his 3-pointers here and there, didn't really have any hot streaks, but over the course of 39 minutes slowly but steadily worked his way up to become the Cavaliers' top scorer for this one. Isaiah Thomas then follows suit with 21, however his shooting percentage barely above 30%, so he's lucky he got the rebounds, assists and steals to go for him tonight, otherwise this might have been an absolutely horrible game from him. LeBron James then also with a performance that we're not really accustomed to from him in the playoffs, only 15 points on bad efficiency. Going forward, that definitely has to improve. The last guy in double figures, Kevin Love, didn't get a whole lot of shots tonight, but he did make the most out of the few open looks he had and finished the game 1 rebound shy of a double-double. So that's game 1 in the books. Let's have a look at the matchup out west. Here the Oklahoma City Thunder take game 1 in a 15-point victory against the Jazz, behind 45 points from Russell Westbrook. It will now be interesting to see if Westbrook has to put up those numbers every game for the Thunder to win, and we will probably get an answer to that in game 2. Speaking of game 2, that is what we'll jump into right away. Let's see if the Cavaliers can bounce back. Neither team with any changes to their starting lineups, the Legionnaires now playing in their golden uniforms, and at least to start things off, those were not necessarily good luck charms. Because the first quarter of this game was absolutely brutal. The Cavaliers started off red hot from deep and made 6 3-pointers this quarter, with 3 of those already going to Isaiah Thomas, who had an absolutely fantastic first quarter with 15 points. Kevin Love added 8 points and also 3 steals, and turnovers were a big problem for the Legionnaires early on. They gave up the ball 7 times in the first 12 minutes, and that was quickly reflected by the score. After 1 quarter, the Cavaliers already up by double digits. Interestingly enough then, quarter number 2 was the exact opposite. The Cavs continued shooting from deep, but they missed 3-pointer after 3-pointer, and apart from that they mostly played isolation ball. On the other hand, the Legionnaires finally got the inside game to work. Both Mohamed Bamba and Bryce Johnson scored important baskets in the second quarter, as the Legionnaires scored 24 of their 29 second quarter points inside of the paint. Now it was also Louisville's turn to force a few costly turnovers, and what had started off as a pretty lopsided affair had now turned around to be a competitive game by halftime. The Cavaliers still up by 3 and Isaiah Thomas already with 22 points, but the Legionnaires were slowly but steadily finding their rhythm. The third quarter then started off with more baskets from Mohamed Bamba, who scored 6 straight points and actually managed to give the Legionnaires the lead. The Cavaliers answered quickly though. 7 points from Luka Doncic put them back on top, and after a bit more back and forth, neither team could really gain an advantage this quarter. Our game plan was to continue to get the ball inside, and now instead of Bryce Johnson, Scalabrine was the man to shine next to Mohamed Bamba. Together, the two of them racked up 14 points, 8 rebounds and 4 blocks this quarter, but that was only enough to keep the game exactly where it was at halftime. So going into quarter number 4, we are still down by 3, setting the stage for an exciting finish. Sadly though, the Cavaliers quickly took control again, in a performance that resembled much of what we already experienced in the first quarter. Their defense forced turnover after turnover, while Isaiah Thomas once again ran hot. He scored 10 points this quarter and our big men did their best to keep up. Labissiere answered with 11 points of his own. Mo Bamba hustled on defense and recorded 3 more blocks, but unfortunately behind Thomas the Cavaliers went on a big 11-2 run to end the quarter, and that decided the game for good. Once again though, a great performance by the Legionnaires and a fun game to play, even though Louisville ultimately goes down by double digits. On the bright side, the series is now split at 1 game apiece, and for the next 2 games we have home court advantage. Before we move on to those, however, let's once again have a look at the stats. We can see immediately this game was one for the big man. Scal Labissière, the Legionnaires' best scorer with 22 points. However, the stat line of the night undoubtedly belongs to Mohamed Bamba, who once again had a monster performance. 20 points, 19 rebounds, 3 steals and 6 rejections. Those numbers show his immense worth for the Legionnaires, both offensively and especially on defense. Our shooting guards Flanders and Richardson then both not with the best shooting nights. Flanders shot only 33% from the field, but at least he also got himself 5 assists and 3 steals. Richardson remained rather one-dimensional today, shooting 6 of 14 from the field, also not the best shooting performance from him. Still, it was good enough to make him one of 5 double-digit scorers tonight. Number 5 then Bryce Johnson, who had his good moments in the post. Sadly though, his 12 points not enough to put the Legionnaires on top in this one. An honorable mention goes to Tyler Ulis, who finished with a game-high 9 assists. However, he also couldn't hit a single shot from the field and scored only 1 meager point tonight. For the Cavaliers, the man of the match without a doubt Isaiah Thomas. His 36 points broke the Legionnaires' backs tonight, and even though he once again shot way below 50%, when it mattered he hit the shots and ultimately led the Cavaliers to victory. Luka Doncic also not too shabby with 17 points and 7 assists, but I would rather mention Kevin Love here, who not only scored 16 points and grabbed 9 rebounds, but also racked up 7 steals. Especially for a player who's not really known for his defense, that is definitely surprising, but Love played the passing lanes perfectly tonight, and ultimately those turnovers were costly for the Legionnaires. Last but not least then LeBron James, once again with a rather forgettable performance. His 12 points on 4 of 13 shooting really don't scream superstar at me, but then again the Cavaliers were still good enough to win. So, as we head back to the overview, we can also see the Thunder have gone up 2-0 against the Jazz, and once again Russell Westbrook stepped up in this one. This time he delivered one of his signature triple-doubles, as OKC blows out Utah 115-91. So, with the series tied at 1 game apiece, we now travel back to Louisville. With home court advantage, I hope we can get another victory, especially considering how close those 2 games were that we played on the road. Starting things off though, we had our issues, especially on defense, as all 3 of our wings racked up early fouls. Tyler Ulis, Josh Richardson and Rodney Hood all had 2 fouls by the middle of the quarter, and so, at least for those positions, we had to bring in our second unit a bit earlier than I would have liked. The Cavaliers were mostly able to use this advantage, and once again Isaiah Thomas got going earlier with 9 points in the first quarter. Still, it was the Legionnaires who had the lead for the most part in this quarter, and that was in large parts thanks to Mohamed Bamba. After a big performance in the last game, Bamba continued right where he left off, and he had already secured himself the double-double after the first quarter, finishing that quarter with an insane 13 points, 10 rebounds and 2 rejections. And thanks to Bamba and to some poor shooting from the Cavaliers, the Legionnaires actually have the lead after one, albeit only by 4 points. In quarter number 2 then, the Cavaliers started to hit their shots a bit more. And for a change, LeBron James also decided not to remain quiet any longer. He came up big with 12 points in this quarter, while Isaiah Thomas added another 9, just like in quarter number 1. Both Thomas and James now with 18 points at the halftime break, and thanks to those 2, the Cavaliers also with a small 1-point lead at the break. The story of the third quarter then were 3-pointers. And unfortunately for the Legionnaires, they were pretty much all made by the same team. In quarter number 3, the Cavaliers went absolutely nuclear from 3. They hit 7 shots from deep in those 12 minutes, resulting in 21 of their 29 third quarter points coming from beyond the arc. And even though the Legionnaires tried their best to keep up, that was pretty hard to do, and so despite a solid performance from Josh Richardson, they now find themselves trailing by 9 points after 3 quarters. Definitely not the best lookout to go into quarter number 4, especially since LeBron James and Isaiah Thomas once again hit most of their shots. The Legionnaires once again tried to get the ball inside and both Bamba and Johnson were able to score a few more points, but it was unfortunately not enough to come back from a 9-point deficit. The Cavaliers then finished the quarter on a quick 9-2 run and that sealed the deal. Once again, Cleveland comes away with a double-digit victory here, after hitting 16 3-pointers tonight on a shooting percentage of just below 50%. And that is the type of game where you can't do much more but to accept defeat. No doubt the Legionnaires are a good team on defense, but sadly they are not yet equipped to deal with multiple opponents running scorching hot. Despite the loss, there were a few positives, most notably the stat line for Mohamed Bamba. He once again had a monster game with 24 points and 18 rebounds, and it definitely wasn't his fault the Legionnaires lost tonight. Josh Richardson then the only wing player in double digits, although even he scored most of his points driving to the basket, resulting in a fairly good shooting percentage and 19 points. Both Johnson and Labissiere then only with shooting percentages around 40%, and as the big man down low, that needs to be a bit better for them to be considered efficient. Those two also the last two guys scoring in double figures, and while we mentioned the good, we also have to mention the bad, and topping that list tonight was undoubtedly Andre Flanders, who finished the game shooting an abysmal 3 of 13, resulting in only 6 points in 21 minutes. For the Cavs, it was finally LeBron James time. After struggling in the first two games, he definitely came to play tonight, finishing the game with 30 points just ahead of Isaiah Thomas with 28. Thomas once again also incredibly efficient from deep. He made 5 3-pointers tonight, one more than Luka Doncic, who added 4. And with that, we now head back to the overview, and we can see the Thunder have handed the Jazz another blowout. This time also no triple-doubles or big-time scoring performances for OKC. It simply seems like the Jazz are really not that well equipped to handle them. So, Game 4 in Louisville, and it's safe to say the Legionnaires need a victory, which is why we have actually made a small change to the starting lineup, where Rajon Rondo is now starting in place of Tyler Ulis. This is not because I didn't like Ulis' offensive production for the first games, but more because I'm slowly getting worried about Isaiah Thomas. Thomas has arguably been the Cavaliers' most consistent scorer so far, and with Rondo in the game, I hope to put a bit more defensive pressure on him. And starting off, that actually worked beautifully. Thomas remained ice cold for the first quarter and shot only 1 of 6, while the Legionnaires started off hot. They shot almost 70% from the field in the first quarter, and especially the second unit absolutely came to play early on. Bryce Johnson scored 9 first quarter points off the bench, Andre Flanders also provided a spark with 7, while the Cavaliers were struggling mightily. And so, yes, you're seeing that right. With 1 quarter in the books, the Legionnaires lead by 16 points. In the second quarter then, the Cavaliers went back to what had already worked in the previous game. They hit their 3-pointers. On defense, they also forced a lot of turnovers, but their 6 triples in this quarter definitely helped bring them back into the game. Especially Luka Doncic had a fantastic quarter and scored 10 points, and had it not been for the Legionnaires' big lead from the first quarter, they would have now been down big at halftime. However, even for a Cavaliers team in rhythm, that lead was hard to answer in just 1 quarter, and so going into the halftime break, the Legionnaires still have a 6-point lead. You can also see here the Legionnaires still up to a field goal percentage of almost 60%. Sadly though, that field goal percentage would crash in the third quarter. The only Legionnaire who made his shots consistently in this quarter was Josh Richardson, who was able to put up 13 points in the third. The rest of the team, however, laid brick after brick, while the Cavaliers continued their barrage from 3. Isaiah Thomas also once again ran hot and scored 12 points this quarter, and at this point it didn't really matter who defended him, he made his shots no matter what. Probably thanks to Richardson's 13 points, the Legionnaires still with a narrow 1-point lead at the end of the quarter, unfortunately though with their performance steadily decreasing. And that trend would also continue in the final quarter. Next to Isaiah Thomas, who scored a further 11 points this quarter, now LeBron James also got going. He scored 12 to get his total for the game up to 25, and also gave the Cavaliers the lead for the first time. Our answer came almost exclusively in the form of Bryce Johnson, who absolutely abused the Cavaliers in this quarter and put up 13 points. Sadly though, for the most part the quarter remained a one-man show from the Legionnaires, while the Cavaliers worked much better as a team. It also helped that they shot 60% from the field and 67% from 3, which was ultimately enough to not only build but also maintain a lead. And that lead, small as it was, lasted until the final buzzer, as the Cavaliers come back from a big 16-point deficit in the first quarter to win Game 4 on the road by 5 points. And this loss definitely not only a result of the good shooting from the Cavaliers. The Legionnaires had this one firmly in control in the first half, but in the second half their offense was just way too one-dimensional, and even though players like Richardson and Johnson put up very good numbers, those individual numbers were ultimately not enough to compete with a strong Cavalier unit. Nonetheless, let's quickly talk about those individual numbers, because I think especially Bryce Johnson deserves a mention here. At the power forward, he has consistently been a force for the Legionnaires this series, and his 29 points and 9 rebounds tonight were another big statement. For the most part, the Cavaliers had absolutely no answer for him. After scoring 13 points in the third quarter, Richardson then finished the game with only 17. Apart from that third quarter, he didn't really get going, and that probably also played a reason in the loss tonight. Still, his stat line is nothing to complain about. With 5 assists, he also helped his teammates get going, and it is definitely nice to see Richardson become a bit more versatile on offense. As the other power forwards, Galabisia then also had a nice impact for the Legionnaires. He was outplayed by Johnson tonight and therefore only played 25 minutes. Still, those were good enough for 17 points and 6 rebounds. His 5 turnovers, on the other hand, something he definitely needs to work on. Rodney Hood also pretty efficient on his way to 14 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists and 3 steals, while Andre Flanders was also able to bounce back from the horrible game he had a few days ago. He finished tonight's affair with 13 points, shooting exactly 50% from the field. Mohamed Bamba then for a change a bit more quiet on offense, and that could have very well played a role in the loss tonight. Still, by all means, Bamba's stat line isn't looking bad. 8 points, 16 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals and 2 rejections, all that while shooting 50% from the field and only committing 2 fouls. If that is a stat line for one of Bamba's off games, then I am more than happy to live with that. The Rajon Rondo experiment, by the way, really only worked well for the first quarter of this game. In the 24 minutes he played, Rondo caused more turnovers than assists, and his plus-minus of -32 was by far the worst on the entire team tonight, and ultimately, even though he struggled in the first quarter, Isaiah Thomas once again scored more or less at will. Thomas, by the way, only got 4 minutes of rest tonight, and still he showed no signs of exhaustion. His stat line without a doubt the best on the Cavaliers tonight. 34 points, including 7 3-pointers, 7 assists and 6 steals. Yes, we turned over the ball way too much, and Thomas made the most out of those opportunities. LeBron James then added 25 points on 50% shooting, coming up big late in the game, exactly when the Cavaliers needed him. With Luka Doncic, then the bad probably outweighs the good tonight. Yes, Doncic was able to put up 15 points, but he also shot only 40% from the field and finished the game with 9 turnovers and 4 personal fouls. Unsurprisingly then, the fourth and final guy to score in double figures for the Cavaliers is Kevin Love. He was mostly used as a spot-up shooter and made a few 3-pointers tonight, but also once again he played the passing lanes pretty nicely, and his game-high 7 steals once again show how careless the Legionnaires were on offense. And with that, the Legionnaires now find themselves with their backs against the wall, down 3-1 against the Cavaliers team that has finally found its rhythm, and to make matters even worse, we're traveling back to Cleveland for the next game. Out west, that trip back to OKC wasn't even necessary. The Thunder once again dismantled the Jazz in a 45-point victory, and that completes the series sweep, and for the second time in a row, the Thunder advanced to the NBA Finals. The Cavaliers now looking to meet them there, and with the way the series has gone so far, I would say their chances are pretty good. Still, I haven't given up hope yet, and as we jump into Game 5 in Cleveland, we're back with the old starting lineup. With the series on the line, this is not the time for experiments, so we can only hope that Ulis does his best on defense. In the first quarter then, we kind of gave the Cavaliers a taste of their own medicine, because probably for the first time this series, the Legionnaires ran hot from deep. Ulis, Richardson, Flanders and Hood all were successful from 3, and especially Hood was also phenomenal on defense, racking up 4 early steals this quarter. Meanwhile, the Cavaliers couldn't really find their shot. They shot only 33% in the first, and so once again the Legionnaires have the lead after 1, up by 7 points, with the Cavaliers struggling a bit. From the previous games we have learned, however, that the Cavs' cold streaks normally don't last long, and that was also the case in this game. In the second quarter, the Cavs found their stroke and shot 62% from the field, while the Legionnaires likely put up the worst quarter in the entire series so far, shooting a horrific 24% from the field, scoring only 15 points, 4 of those off of free throws. And so the Cavaliers now win this quarter by 16 points and turn the first quarter deficit into a 9-point lead at halftime. And for the first few minutes in the third quarter, things would continue to get worse. With barely 2 minutes played in the quarter, Mohamed Bamba suffers an injury. He hurt his left foot here and would not be able to return. To top it all off, Luka Doncic then also caught fire from 3. He hit 4 3-pointers this quarter and finished with 16 points in the third. After overcoming the initial shock and already down by double digits, the Legionnaires had an answer though. And that answer came, just like in the previous game, in the form of Bryce Johnson. Despite the great performance from Doncic, Johnson was actually able to outperform him in the third, putting up 19 points and 6 rebounds in only 7 minutes. Yes, Bryce Johnson absolutely exploded in this quarter. The Cavaliers quickly started bringing double teams, and still they could not stop him. And so it was Johnson's amazing performance in the third that brought the Legionnaires back into this. Winning the quarter by 5 points, they are still down by 4 going into the fourth, but they had now found their weapon of choice. And for the early stretches in the fourth, that weapon continued to fire. Johnson added a further 11 points in the fourth quarter, and the game remained close up until the 6-minute mark. Then, slowly but steadily, Johnson was running out of breath. At the same time, the Cavaliers once again caught fire. Over the course of the next 5 minutes, the Cavaliers went on a 20-3 run, playing lockdown defense and hitting shot after shot. And what had been a 1-point game midway through the fourth had now unfortunately once again turned into a double-digit affair. And at that point, there was sadly no coming back for the Legionnaires, and so the Cavaliers win the 4th game in a row, take the series in convincing fashion, and they become your 2020 Eastern Conference champions. Now, admittedly, there were not a ton of great performances this game. Still, we can't wrap this up without mentioning Bryce Johnson, who went on a fantastic streak in the second half. He single-handedly put the Legionnaires on his back and finished with a big stat line of 38 points and 11 rebounds. Unfortunately though, only 2 other guys were able to score in double digits tonight, and those were Rodney Hood and Tyler Ulis, who scored 15 and 10 respectively. The rest of the team then definitely struggled a bit. Josh Richardson's 4 of 11 not really efficient, Andre Flanders even worse with 3 of 10, and on top of that, Mohamed Bamba was only able to play 20 minutes tonight before being forced to leave the game due to injury, admittedly once again on pace for a double-double. For the Cavaliers, the scoring duties once again spread across their big 4, this time with Luka Doncic at the top of the list, and no surprises here, his 16 points in the third quarter were big for the Cavs, while James, Thomas and Love all came to play in the fourth quarter, leading the Cavaliers in their final charge to take the series. And with that, the Cavaliers now advance to the finals, where they will face the reigning champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder. And even though OKC only finished as the 5th seed, their path to the finals has been pretty impressive. They have only lost 2 games so far, one against Minnesota and one against the 1st seed Houston Rockets, while the Cavaliers' only loss has come at the hands of the Legionnaires. So a powerhouse matchup awaits us in the finals, but let's also not forget about Mohamed Bamba. We can see here the injury, a stress fracture, keeping him out for the season. That, however, sounds worse than it is. Season in this case only means the season that we're currently in, so he should be ready to go again for the next one. At this point, I would say let's make the cut. In the next episode, we'll then see who takes the crown this year, and we will once again head into the off-season. Until then, as always, leave a thumbs up if you liked the episode, and of course, if you want to support the channel and help us grow, then feel free to subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!